Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar this morning. Today is all about drafting your standards. This webinar is there for CEN Standard Drafters. We're going to refresh your mind this morning to get started with drafting your standards. We have a similar webinar on the CEN standards drafting this morning, at 11 o'clock. So should you be interested, you can also join that one. My name is Els, and I'll be moderating the webinar here in the background. During the presentation, you'll all be muted, so you can use the Q&A panel to submit your questions. So please do so should you have questions or queries that you want to raise. You're free to talk about the webinar as well. Should you be on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, or Instagram, we have a dedicated hashtag training for standards for that. So without further ado, I think it's time to give the floor to my colleague Amy. She will guide you to the refresh training of this morning. Thank you, Amy. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Els. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me today to go through just a very quick little refresh on how to get started with drafting your standards. So today we will talk about your questions. So we're going to do things a little bit differently today. So instead of saving all of your questions for the end about just today's webinar, I would like you to send in any question that you have about drafting, about how to get started, anything that you have. If you are brand new to this, ask away. There's no such thing as a stupid question. We will answer them. If you are a little bit more experienced, if there's anything that's been bugging you about getting started, drafting in general, timeframes, absolutely anything, please send it in today. We will handle everything at the end. Of course, if anything does come up during today's webinar too, please ask those as well. We will then cover getting started, so what you need and why you need it. We'll then talk about the simple template, which I'm sure many of you have heard about, and the quick start guides as well, where to find everything too. I'll go over the CEN Boss content just very briefly, just to show you that it's there, but we won't go too in depth with that today. And then we will go over the internal regulations part 3, which is something very, very, very important for drafting. We'll talk about why these are so important, and I'll also tell you where you can find them as well. And then at the end, any and all questions that have come in today, we'll talk about. So your questions, what do we want you to ask? So as I've said, anything related to drafting, IR3, timeframes, anything like that to do with things that you would ask your editors or things that you would ask production. That's what we want from you today. However, if you do have any OSD related questions, because we do know that is something that's coming up and it's very relevant, we won't be handling those live today in this webinar. However, if you do have a burning question for OSD, this is of course a perfect time to pose it. We will still pass those on to the relevant colleagues, so please do still ask. We just won't handle it live today verbally. Alternatively, for OSD, you can also check the following link. That has extensive guidance on the development, on anything that you could potentially need to know. So do check that out. If not, come to us and we can pass your questions on. So let's get started. So where do you begin with your drafting? You're ready to start a standard. What do you need to do? So first thing you need to do is identify which deliverable you actually want to draft, which seems a bit silly, but it's for a purpose. So you've got the choice between a European standard, a technical specification, or a TS, a technical report, or a TR, and an amendment, or AMD for today. And why is this important? Why do you need to know what you're drafting? It determines which rules you follow. We do have different rules for certain topics. So in order to identify which ones you need to know what you're drafting. I think that goes without saying. It also determines the template that you need as well. We do have specific templates for amendments versus the European deliverable too. So using the correct template saves everybody time. Now, with the rules, we talk a lot about IR3 in drafting. So for an EN, a TS, and an amendment, IR3 applies. Just IR3, nothing else. For technical reports, so TRs, IR3 still applies. However, there's the added caveat that we cannot allow any requirements, recommendations, or permissions. And yes, we do check. We do a very thorough search before you even submit it to us, actually. So before we accept it, we check this just to make sure that there's nothing in there. And we do this primarily because we know some elements might need to be redrafted. So if you send your text to us, your TR to us, and we start editing it and we realize, gosh, this is filled with requirements, there's recommendations everywhere, we then have to send it back to you to redraft. So it's delays in a time frame that we want to avoid. So we ask that you do that just beforehand. And you're aware that it is a document that is just statements of fact and nothing else. It's important for you to know. We also have templates. So as I said, the amendment does have its own special template, and that is because it's drafted slightly differently. So an EN, a TS, a TR it's a regular document. It contains requirements, except for TRs, of course. It contains figures, tables, all of that sort of stuff. But an amendment is slightly different. That contains a series of instructions on what you need to change in the original text. So we created a special template for that. And you can find everything in the same place, but we'll take a look at that in a little bit. So to get started, actually, you've got two options. Either you will start fresh new work, so there's nothing else that's been published and you're creating something completely new. Or you'll revise a standard. You'll take something that's already published and you'll just check the content and make sure that it is okay, that it's good to go. If you're starting fresh new work, very simple, you download the Send Simple template and you draft directly into it using our styling rules, using all of the extensive webinars that we have online, using the SendBoss content. It's very, very simple. Seems complex, it's very simple. If you're revising something, however, we ask that you use the previous publication. So what's already available out there, we ask that you use that as the basis of your new draft. If it's pre-2017, 2018, more or less that time frame, we ask that you copy and paste that publication into the simple template. This has a few different benefits. It allows you to have all of the rules that are up to date because we did a big overhaul of IR3 in 2017. It also allows you to have the correct styling. So a number of you will still be using Word and PDF instead of the OSD. And while that's the case, we need you to have the correct styling so your editors can create an XML file. We obviously don't expect you to be experts in that. That's our job. And that's why we've created this template for you so that you can do those things easier. So pre-2017, 2018, even if you're not sure, play it safe and just copy and paste it into the simple template. Nice and simple. So for revisions and drafting for formal vote, especially after inquiry, we do have a special rule, and that is that you use the text that CCMC edited. Now, it is only available this for TC secretaries at the moment. They are the only ones who have access. So if you are a drafter, you do need to contact your TC secretary and just get them to give you the text. So you can find the previous published edition or the inquiry text when you draft for formal vote. You can find that on projects online. So you can see the screenshot on screen right now, the oval around access to current documents. That will give you access to what is already there. This helps us to retain our edits. So when your editor goes in and makes changes, aligns things with IR3, formatting, all of that kind of thing, it helps us to retain that. So if you do have a recent publication and you want to revise it, everything is still in there. Helps the process go smoother, helps things go faster, prevents delays where they don't need to be. So this is the screen. This is obviously just for TC secretaries. This is the screen that you will be met with, which is quite overwhelming and a bit crazy. What does all of this mean? So we can see the pre-draft at the top of each column is what we have submitted to CCMC, what we have submitted to translation. So what CCMC has sent to translation after we've edited. The text procedure, so we're looking here at the English version. So the 256A1DE, this is the work item, and then we have our deadline in the date. The E is the English version, which is what your editor will have worked on. Exceptionally, we do work on French and German too, but generally speaking, it's the English version. This is the text that we've submitted. So we submit the text at each stage, inquiry, at formal vote, and finally at publication as well. These are the texts that you want to take. So you want to take the text submitted by CCMC to inquiry when you're preparing your formal vote. And for revisions, you want to take the publication from CCMC. And if you use those, there'll be no problems. So why do you need all of this? Why is all of this important? Simple template equals simple drafting. I will not get tired of saying this. It includes all of the IR3 rules and all of the layouts, and it provides in text, direct interpretations of all of the drafting guidance as well. We appreciate as editors that IR3 is very difficult to understand at times. We want to make it simple for you, so we've tried to do that as best we can. It also includes full styling as well in terms of point and click. So you take the portion of text that you want to style, you click a style, and it applies it. It really couldn't be simpler, and that's why we call it the simple template. So this just helps us to avoid delays with those IR3 interpretations. Your interpretation could be different to ours, and we want to avoid that because it creates sometimes unnecessary conversations and conflicts, and nobody needs that while they're trying to draft. It also helps us to avoid nasty surprises as well. So you see exactly how your text will look. You see exactly how it will be laid out, exactly how we are going to send it off to inquiry or eventually publish it as well. So you won't spend too much time trying to create something beautiful that we then come in and completely destroy. So that's another positive to it. I've already mentioned the point and click styling, but it also helps us to avoid any potential rejected texts at incheck. If we see that you've done something completely crazy and we can't work with it, we do reject it and we ask you to redraft it. That can sometimes add weeks onto a time frame, and nobody needs that. So it's very, very useful, very beneficial for everybody involved if the simple template is used at the beginning of your drafting. If something doesn't work within the simple template, we appreciate Word can do crazy things. It sometimes does whatever it wants to do. The editors can work with something wrongly styled if it's in the template. We can work with that much quicker than something that is created by you that looks okay, but isn't necessarily styled okay. So just be aware of that. If you do use the wrong style, we can still work with it very quickly. We have tools in-house that help our job. So we'd rather you use the simple template and wrongly style something than not use it and struggle, basically. So now the simple template and quick start guide. It is created by your editors for you. It's a downloadable Word document. Type straight into it. There's no fuss. There's no need to fiddle with any add-ins or macros. We call it a template because we've laid it out like a standard, basically, but it is not a typical Word template where you have to install something and do crazy things with it. We've tried to keep it simple. And there's also a quick start guide as well. Now, this is a PDF file, and this only gets updated if we really update something in the simple template, if we really overhaul something. So you can pretty much use that as a direct guide to how to use the template, which styles to use and when. We've also included some tips and tricks in there to make Word work for you as well, because the editors here in CCMC, we are pros and experts with Word, and we want to pass that on to you as well. Now, the CEN drafting content is another fantastic resource that you can check out when you start drafting. It's a one-stop shop for very quick drafting guidance, quick being the operative word here. It's drafted and kept up to date by your editors, so we are constantly checking this content, constantly checking to make sure it's up to date. And it has all of the links that you will need for drafting. And we're going to go there together just very quickly. So again, I'm not going to go in depth with this, just to show you that it's there, that it exists, and to cover it a little tiny bit. So this is the beautiful CEN. We're going to go to the right-hand side of our screen over here to reference materials. And then we are going to go to guidance documents. So you can go here on the side as well on the left. So guidance documents. We then have drafting guidance in the middle. So we're going to click this, scroll, scroll, scroll all the way down, and we have 2 pages that are interesting, but we're going to check today preparation and submission of files because this covers everything, regular EN, TS, TR, also applicable to amendments too. So this is the page. Very quick scroll through. It's very long for a web page, but it contains everything that you could possibly need. Very interesting for getting started is clause 1, clause 1.1. So this tells you exactly what you need for a successful submission. So you need your Word format, non-revisable clean PDF, individual separate figure files if you have them. If your document is harmonized, you need to provide special things as well. On the right-hand side here, you have access to the IR2, so Internal Regulations Part 2 and Part 3 as well. And forms and templates gives you the simple template and anything that's mentioned here. So these are for the harmonized standards. So you really do have everything to really get started. We then go in depth about what you need for the revisable word format, the fact that you need to use the simple template, naming conventions as well, the PDF. We talk about your figure files, starting new work, revising an existing deliverable, figures, everything you could need to know about figures as well. And we also, for each part, we link to the relevant part of IR3 because IR3 is, as I've said, sometimes difficult to understand. So we try to give you what, and then we give you the where. You then have general drafting requirements, how to draft figures, because figures are sometimes the thing that trips people up. But again, you can go through this in your own time. Please do check this in your own time, but just so that you know this is here. All about figures. This will take ages to go through. And we also have a webinar that's gone through this in detail too. But this is important too. Clause 5, other drafting aspects. So we take all of the key aspects, clause 1, 2, and 3, what they should be, normative references, and a little bit of guidance as well. Do take a look through this in your own time. Clause 3, terms and definitions, tables, formulae, inclusive language, and then how to finish off going via the submission interface. Take a look through this. It is a fantastic resource. We maintain this as well, the editors. We're constantly checking this over to make sure that it is up to date and still relevant. We've tried to create something that is very useful for you. So just to refresh you, you go to the CEN boss, you go to reference material on the right-hand side, you go to guidance documents, and then drafting guidance. Scroll, 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 and it's right here. Hopefully that is clear. So now moving on to the internal regulations part 3. So I've just shown you how to get to the boss. The internal regulations part 3 is on exactly the same path, except for that you're going to go to reference documents instead of the guidance documents. But why is IR3 so important? You'll hear the editors talk constantly about IR3 as you draft. Why is it so important? It's long. It's often very full of grey areas, and it's sometimes very difficult to understand what it's actually letting you do and what it's actually forbidding you to do. So it's the editor's role here in CCMC to know this document by heart and to help you understand and apply the tricky bits too. And that's the purpose of all of our guidance material. It's the purpose of our webinars. It's what we do. It's our day-to-day job. It applies to all deliverables, as we've talked about on a previous slide. And it was overhauled in 2017 with a few minor updates in 2019 and I believe 2022 as well. So therefore, if a deliverable is being revised and the original was published before 2017, it goes without saying that the new IR3 applies. Please don't assume that rules that were applicable before then still apply now. We do update things, things do change. Just make sure that you're using the new IR3 for any of your new deliverables. And as I've said, all of our guidance is based on this. So you can be sure that if something is a bit confusing, the answer on how to apply it will be out there. Now, if you take anything away from IR3, you should learn this. So how to refer to sections, so referring to parts of a standard or parts of a document, clauses, subclauses. We see many different things. We see chapter, we see a part for a clause instead. We see many different invented things. Try to keep it standard. We have a standard for standards. So that's in there. Verbal forms of expression as well. Tables 3 to 7 are absolutely indispensable for you. They contain all of the ways to formulate requirements. So shall, recommendations, should, permissions, may, statements of fact, can, external constraints must. These tables, if you don't look at anything else, please look at those because those are very, very important for you to know. Clause 1 is your scope. It is obligatory. This can't contain any requirements, recommendations, or permissions. It's just simple statements of fact. So when you're drafting your scope, this document covers, this document describes, it's perfect. Clause 2 is your normative references. This is obligatory even if it's empty. So your scope should not be empty, but your clause 2 can be empty if you don't have any. We do give guidance on dated versus undated in IR3. We've also tried to interpret that guidance simply for you on all of our guidance material. You also have specific introductory wording for both a complete normative references clause and an empty clause. We've included those in the simple template as well. So you simply have to choose which one you want or which one you need, delete the other one, and you're good to go. Clause 3, terms and definitions, or you might want this to be your terms, definitions, and abbreviations if you want to mix the two. This is obligatory even if it's empty, just like Clause 2. IR3 gives you guidance on how to draft your definitions, which is very important because they need to be seamlessly able to replace the term in the text. So if you don't have a sentence that can replace the term, you will need to redraft. And this is something that the editors will ask you to do as well. We'll offer guidance where we can, but we will ask you to redraft any definitions that don't meet that criteria. We give you introductory wording for every available opportunity that you can have with the terms and definitions. So terms and definitions given in this document only, given in another document only, another document and this document together, and if it's empty as well. So check IR3 for each one of those, pick which is applicable, copy and paste it in. I don't think we give all of the eventualities in the simple template. It would be far too long. But IR3 has all of them. So take a look, take your pick. The rest of IR3 has everything that you can see on the screen now. So measurements and test methods, marking, labeling and packaging, annexes, bibliography, components of the text, all of those little nitty-gritty bits. And also policy, so your copyrights, your patents, and annexes as well as some interesting annexes. It's worth taking a look through those parts. So that was a very, very quick refresh on getting started with how to draft. So hopefully we should have some questions in now. So I'm going to mute myself and just take a quick look at the chat, but I don't see that there's any in at the
No,
moment.
hi, Amy. Gonzalo actually replied a few questions that we received. So thank
Aha.
you very much, Gonzalo, for that. But the Q&A is still open, no? So people can still
Mhm.
submit their questions should they have other questions.
Absolutely. And it can be about absolutely anything to do with the drafting, anything to do with timeframes, standards, whatever, as long as it's relevant to production, of course. We have one. So, can I find a time scheduling template in Boss for the planning of a revision of a standard? So, when to submit? That I believe is outside of what we've covered today. That is something that would have to go with the planning in the TC.
But
Though.
maybe I think also to clarify maybe the question, so it's how to define the different planning dates for the submission of the project from the technical committee. That's your question.
I believe so.
Because we do have, I can include a link to where you can plan the time frame of the project. This is available in the Boss webpage.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Could we give a link to the guidance document? Yes. So I will go through and update some of the links so that you can have a direct access when we provide the PDF of this standard of this presentation. Sorry. So all of the links will be present. There'll be a slide at the end as well that contains everything that you'll need to know. That is fine. Can you expand more on the requirements for figures? So specific format, how or who can draft, drafting services available. So CCMC doesn't have the capacity in-house to draft figures, unfortunately. What we ask is that if you don't have capacity within your TC, you can contact your national member, your national standards body, who should be able to provide you with that service. We ask that you provide the figure files for us for that reason, basically. As for the specific format, you can find all of that information on the CEN Boss very much in detail. We've tried to make it as clear as possible. So please do check that out because it's far more detailed than what I can talk about today. We also have webinars on figures too, how to draft them, how to provide them, how to link them, all of that good stuff. Next one, is there a specific standardized way for referring to research articles in the bibliography of a standard? I don't believe we give a specific way to actually refer to a reference in the bibliography. I don't think there's any specific rule on that. We do have a rule for the whole bibliography, and that is that it just has to contain things that are informatively referred to in the text of the standard. So if there's a special way that you would like to use. If there's a special referencing technique that you would prefer, please use that. Just make sure that you adhere to the rules in IR3 about what you need to put in the bibliography itself. I hope that answered that question. Is there any available automated check tool to assess the quality of a draft standard in OSD? We will pass that question on to our OSD colleagues. So if you could send us your email address, if you can send us an email with that, we can pass that on for you, Nicola.
But Amy, I can add something. So there are a few quality checks that are embedded in the OSD, and while drafting, the technical bodies can definitely use the quality checks, and they will provide you some inputs on what is not correct and what you need to do to correct the text.
Perfect.
There is also the question from David Ide on the images. So actually, when we are now moving to OSD, the requirements on the figure files are going to change. It will be much simpler, and I think we will reduce the number of issues with the submissions and the quality of the figures. So the criteria for OSD are much simpler, and I would suggest, David, that you look into all the training material on OSD, because this is well explained there.
Awesome. Thank you, Gonzalo. So I don't see any more questions in, and there are no questions in the chat.
No, correct. Can I maybe suggest that I launch the feedback poll, Amy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Since people are still connected, maybe they're thinking about submitting questions, that's fine, of course. But in the meanwhile, I would like to open the feedback poll. It's a poll with just 3 short questions that we would like you to answer. The replies to the poll will be used to improve our webinars in the future, of course. So thank you very much for submitting.
Thank you. And if there's any more questions, there's 2 minutes to get those in.
And I didn't really mention it at the beginning, but the webinar has been recorded, so we will share the recording and the presentation with you later today.
All right, last chance for any questions, anything else. Otherwise, any questions that maybe come to you afterwards, after you've had time to reflect, you can always send myself an email, production an email. We're here to help. So it's not too much of a trouble if something comes a little bit later on. Okay, there's one more question that's just come in on my side. Can we point out the Annex Z review by the CEN consultant? Do you mean the template for the Annex Z, perhaps? The question's not too clear for me. Gonzalo, you
No, I actually had the same question, Amy. It's not fully clear what is intended with this question.
It's all right. If a clarification comes through, we can always reply to that by email.
Yeah.
And then the very final one, will there be a seminar for corrections and amendments soon? We can plan one for the new year, certainly, because we do have template and boss content for that. So absolutely, we can plan that for the new year as part of the new series on webinars for drafters when we plan those out. So please do keep a lookout for those. Those will come. But I believe most of the other questions are OSD related.